Her career as the youngest black judge seemed over when corrupt cops framed her, and a bribed judge prepared to convict. But her brother uncovered a truth that exposed their conspiracy. The biggest shock? In court, her enemies learned she was now their new boss. What happened next will stun you. Let's start at the beginning. Angela Thompson, a trailblazing black attorney, recently achieved a historic milestone, becoming the youngest judge in her district. Her meteoric rise to the bench was fueled by a reputation for fairness, an unyielding commitment to justice, and an unwavering voice against corruption. Angela had become a symbol of hope and progress for marginalized communities, but her fierce determination had also earned her dangerous adversaries, particularly among those entrenched in the very system she sought to reform. Two of her most vocal enemies, Detectives Ray Peterson and Tom Callahan, had long been notorious for targeting minority communities with impunity. Angela had spearheaded an investigation into their misconduct during her time as a prosecutor, uncovering evidence of racial profiling and fabricated charges. Though the case stalled due to systemic resistance, the investigation left the officers' reputations tarnished and their careers teetering on the edge. With Angela's ascension to the bench threatening their freedom and influence, the officers devised a desperate and malicious plan to destroy her credibility. Late one evening, as Angela drove home from a community meeting, flashing lights illuminated her rearview mirror. Pulled over under the pretense of a broken taillight, she maintained her composure, cooperating fully with the officers. Despite her poise, Peterson and Callahan staged their sinister act. In a chillingly rehearsed move, they discovered a bag of drugs in her vehicle. Angela protested, her voice steady but filled with disbelief, as the officers tightened handcuffs around her wrists. The cold steel bit into her skin, a jarring contrast to her unwavering belief in the justice system she had dedicated her life to. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. News of Angela's arrest spread like wildfire, with headlines labeling her a hypocrite and a disgrace to the bench. The media frenzy fed into public outrage, splitting the community. While many defended Angela, recalling her integrity and dedication, others saw her as just another corrupt figure exposed. Alone in a holding cell, Angela resolved to fight back, knowing her battle would not only clear her name, but also expose the rot within the system. Angela's trial begins under a cloud of controversy, presided over by Judge Henry Monroe, a white judge infamous for consistently siding with law enforcement. His courtroom, typically seen as a fortress for police immunity, is now the stage for Angela's battle to clear her name. Unbeknownst to the public, Monroe is deeply compromised, having accepted bribes from Detectives Peterson and Callahan to ensure a conviction. Behind closed doors, the officers and the judge exchange messages coordinating their efforts to dismantle Angela's defense. From the outset, the trial is stacked against Angela. Evidence is mysteriously tampered with, critical details omitted or altered to support the prosecution's fabricated narrative. Witnesses, either coerced or outright intimidated, provide false testimony that further implicates Angela. The media frenzy only adds fuel to the fire, painting her as a fallen hero and amplifying public doubts about her integrity. Despite the relentless pressure, Angela refuses to falter. With years of legal experience and a sharp intellect, she meticulously picks apart the prosecution's arguments, exposing contradictions and raising critical questions. Her composure and skill in cross-examination slowly shift the courtroom's tone, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of those observing. Meanwhile, Angela's younger brother Marcus, a determined and tech-savvy activist, works tirelessly behind the scenes. Convinced of her innocence, He dives into an investigation of Peterson and Callahan. His determination leads him to a breakthrough. Surveillance footage from a nearby street camera, capturing the officers planting the drugs in Angela's car. Further digging uncovers damning text messages between the detectives and Judge Monroe, explicitly detailing their conspiracy. Aware of the risks, Marcus moves cautiously. He quietly builds a coalition of allies, including investigative journalists, civil rights activists, and community leaders. Together, they develop a strategy to expose the corruption without jeopardizing Angela's safety or their own. Marcus knows that timing is everything. One misstep could allow the guilty parties to cover their tracks. As the trial unfolds, the weight of truth begins to shift the balance, setting the stage for a dramatic revelation that could bring the entire conspiracy crashing down. As Angela's trial nears its conclusion, tension hangs thick in the air. Public interest has reached a fever pitch, with protesters and reporters gathering outside the courthouse, demanding justice. Inside, Angela remains steadfast, representing herself with remarkable precision and poise. She's keenly aware that the odds remain stacked against her, but her confidence is buoyed by the unseen work of her brother Marcus. In a calculated move, Marcus and his coalition release their findings online the night before closing arguments. The surveillance footage showing Peterson and Callahan planting drugs in Angela's car spreads like wildfire across social media, accompanied by screenshots of incriminating text messages exchanged between the officers and Judge Monroe. The damning evidence ignites nationwide outrage, sparking protests against systemic corruption and demanding accountability. Crowds swell outside the courthouse as demonstrators chant Angela's name, transforming her from an accused criminal into a symbol of resistance. The following day, the courtroom is packed with spectators, the tension palpable. Angela, unshaken by the mounting pressure, steps forward to cross-examine Detective Peterson. Her questions are sharp and deliberate, targeting the inconsistencies in his testimony. With each response, Peterson stumbles, his confidence unraveling under her relentless scrutiny. Angela masterfully dismantles the prosecution's narrative, exposing the fragility of the case against her. As the moment of judgment arrives, Judge Monroe's discomfort is evident. Under the weight of public scrutiny, his usual air of authority is replaced by hesitation. The courtroom watches as he stalls, struggling to issue a verdict. Angela seizes the moment. Rising from her seat, she produces a sealed letter and addresses the court. "This letter," Angela begins, her voice steady and commanding, "is from the governor's office, confirming my appointment as the district's chief judicial oversight officer." The room falls into stunned silence. "You tried to frame me," she continues, her tone laced with restrained fury. "But now, you will answer to me." Gasps ripple through the crowd as Monroe's face pales. The courtroom erupts in chaos, and Angela stands tall amidst the noise, a woman who turned the system's betrayal into its reckoning. The courtroom descends into chaos as Angela's revelation reverberates through the crowd. Reporters scramble to capture the scene, and whispers of shock and outrage ripple through the packed gallery. Moments later, armed with the damning evidence released by Marcus and his team, state authorities step into the courtroom. Detectives Peterson and Callahan are handcuffed and charged with perjury, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. Their smug arrogance crumbles as the reality of their downfall sinks in. Judge Monroe is swiftly removed from the bench, pending a full ethics investigation. His attempts to maintain composure falter under the weight of public condemnation. Angela is acquitted, her name cleared, and the courtroom erupts into cheers from her supporters. Outside, the crowd roars with celebration, chanting her name as a symbol of triumph against injustice. Angela's return to the community is nothing short of a hero's welcome. Streets are lined with supporters holding signs that read, "Justice for Angela," and "Truth prevails." Yet, amid the joy, Angela remains focused. The scars of her ordeal are undeniable, but they only deepen her resolve to dismantle the corrupt systems that allowed this to happen. In her new role as Chief Judicial Oversight Officer, Angela begins implementing sweeping reforms. She establishes independent review boards to hold law enforcement accountable, mandates anti-bias training across the judicial system, and works to repeal legislation that disproportionately impacts minority communities. Her work inspires hope and sets a precedent for change on a national scale. Meanwhile, Marcus emerges as a leading voice for police accountability. Armed with the skills and determination honed during Angela's trial, he uses his platform to advocate for community-driven solutions to policing. His efforts galvanize grassroots movements, bringing communities together to demand systemic change. Angela's journey from accused to advocate becomes a rallying cry for a growing movement. Her resilience in the face of corruption and her unwavering commitment to justice inspire countless others to challenge the status quo. In the end, Angela's fight proves that truth, perseverance, and courage can prevail, transforming even the darkest moments into a beacon of hope for all.